Welcome, gun runner.
Hello everybody, Kieran aka the Lair here, and I've got a hardware review for you this week, and this is one that I'm sure everyone will be really surprised that I haven't done on the channel, because anyone who knows me knows that I'm a pretty huge Atari Jaguar fan, and I have reviewed the Jaguar, because that's not what I'm looking at today, on my channel a long time ago, but I've never looked at the Jaguar CD add-on. Which does seem quite strange because, of course, I've had one for a long time, and I'm a huge fan of it, and I'm always talking up how underrated it is. But for some reason, I just never got round to reviewing it on the channel, and I don't really know why. And it's actually quite a few people over the years have asked me to review the Jaguar CD, and it was always on my list to do. And as I say, I just never got round to it, and I don't know why. But I'm going to correct that today by looking at it. And those of you who follow my channel will know that a few weeks ago I did in fact do a video looking at Jaguar CD exclusives, which I will link in the description and up in the top right hand corner as well, if you want to go and look at the games, because I looked at 10 really good exclusive games for the Jaguar CD in that video. So that is well worth checking out. Yeah, I have also looked at Jaguar Cartridge exclusives as well, so I'll link that one down there as well, if you want to watch that. But going back to the CD exclusives, because I showed footage from 10 games in that video, of course, that weren't on other platforms, I'm going to be very specific with the gameplay footage I use in this video to not repeat games that I showed in that video. So I'm going to use some different games in this video. So if anyone comments and goes, no, but those aren't the best Jaguar CD games, it's because I've already done a video looking at those and I don't want to repeat the content, which is better for my viewers, I feel. So yes, so there we go. We are going to be looking at the Jaguar CD, and I have got some game boxes around and stuff as well, so I can show you some of that. So we'll start off with a little bit of history about the Jaguar CD and how it came about. And it's obviously an add-on for the Jaguar. It cannot be used without having the original Jaguar console. It was released in 1995, at a time when the Jaguar was pretty much already dying, to be honest, because the PlayStation and Saturn had arrived. It was losing big time. Atari kept putting the price down. It's making no difference. They were in a pretty perilous state, and releasing the Jaguar CD was almost like a last throw of the dice, one that didn't really work. The story goes that Atari only built 25,000 Jaguar CDs, which is why it is so rare and expensive to pick up. You'll be looking at paying probably £1,000 for one now, to be honest, that kind of price. And there's supposedly the 25,000 actually though sold out almost immediately. And Atari then ordered 25,000 more to be built. But no one is 100% sure if that extra 25,000 were ever made. There's no evidence. There's only an evidence of an order. There's no evidence that they were ever shipped. So most people believe, especially since the scarcity and looking at serial numbers, that there was only that original 25,000. It was built by Philips Electronics in the Netherlands. Philips developed much of the Jaguar CD hardware, so it was taken out to a different team because, of course, it was Lair Technology in the UK who created the Jaguar console itself. So it's a kind of British-Dutch amalgamation when you add them together. And it's worth noting that although it wasn't released until 1995, the Jaguar CD was pretty much planned right from the beginning. Almost as soon as they showed the Jaguar to the press, they started showing the Jaguar CD to the press as well. It was shown in a lot of images. It was had it running at a few shows. So there was lots of early images of the Jaguar CD. But they held fire in it for a long time. And one of the reasons why they held fire in it for so long was because they didn't have enough games ready for it. But another reason why, I think is probably the main reason why they held fire on it for so long, was because I think they were hoping to build up a decent user base for the Jaguar console itself before they put the CD add-on out into the market. Although I feel that was perhaps unwise, and I think they should have got the Jaguar CD out as quickly as possible, because it would have given people more reasons to buy a Jaguar, because there were people obviously went for a 3DO or a CD32 or a CDI in those earlier years because they saw CD as the next big thing and that's what they wanted. So they really should have had that option, I think, earlier. And of course, there's the prototype Jag Duo console, which has been shown a lot over the years. I've covered that in more depth in another video, so I'll link that for you all. But the Jag Duo was obviously an all-in-one Jaguar and Jaguar CD. They should have got that out to market as well and got it out a bit earlier. It might have helped a little bit. Who knows? I think we could go on forever talking about the problems with the Jaguar and the Jaguar CD, because there was really a lot of issues, not with the hardware itself, but with the way that Atari Corporation handled it, i.e. very poorly. So with that bit of history out the way about how it came about and such like, we should talk about the hardware itself. And one of the first things to note about the Jaguar CD actually is that it doesn't contain any extra hardware over the Jaguar, really, of any note. The only additional thing it has in it is something called the Butch Chip. Fitting in line, obviously the Jaguar has Tom and Jerry, so this has Butch, because Butch was the dog in Tom and Jerry, if you don't know. And the Butch Chip, all that does is add some software in the ROM for decompression of video and graphics, and it has the CD BIOS in it, and it acts as an interface between the two units, drives the CD drive. So all kind of technical stuff that doesn't actually improve the Jaguar hardware. It doesn't add any more power to it or anything like that at all. It was built by Philips. It uses, obviously, it's got a flip top lid with a standard CD drive in it. So because it was built by Philips, it's common parts. So actually, Jaguar CDs are somewhat notorious for breaking. I've never found that, and actually my Jaguar CD, I've never had any issues with it. It is slightly broken, which I'll explain in due course. But I never had any issues with it stopping working, which a lot of people have had, or they claim they've had. And actually, I've known a lot of people with Jaguar CDs over the years, and they also say that they've never really had many serious issues with their Jaguar CDs either. I mean, I actually think that a lot of the stories and the reputation about the Jaguar CD being unreliable actually comes from the infamous Angry Video Game Nerd videos on it. I'm actually, I have to say, I'm a big fan of the Nerd. He's one of the few YouTube channels that I watch religiously, and I always have. But he did the system no favours with those videos, because he said a lot of stuff that was blatantly untrue, and made them out to be far worse than they are. So yeah, although I love the Nerd, I really did not like those videos he did on the Jaguar at all, because I feel that when he's done some other lesser known systems, he wasn't anywhere near as harsh on them as he was with the Jaguar. But that's another story. So yeah, because it's built by Philips, it uses common parts. It may seem strange that Philips built it, being that Philips also had the CDI on the market, which is obviously, I suppose, a direct competitor to the Jaguar. But I suppose it made good business sense for Philips, and it was a nice bit of money for them, I guess. But yeah, so it kind of makes the Jaguar CD cousins with the CDI, I suppose. And because of it being built by Philips, it uses their unique CD format. So the Jaguar CD can actually store 790 megabytes of data, which is more than any other CD system of that era, because they use a special system to be able to store more on the discs. The only problem with that is it made the discs harder to produce, which is one reason why when people try to burn Jaguar CD games, because it has no copy protection, well, it does have copy protection, but people have got round the copy protection. I'll go into that in a little while, actually, because it's worth talking about. So people have got round the BIOS, so you can burn CDs with the BIOS included that will run on there. So there is a copy protection of sorts, but it's still easy to play copies on there. But it's not so easy because you have to burn the CDs at a very, very slow speed, and you have to use really high quality CDRs, otherwise they just will not work on the Jaguar CD. And also, strangely, it seems that some discs will work on some Jaguar CDs, but not on others, which is really, really bizarre. A top tip, actually, for anyone out there who's got a Jaguar CD and wants to burn games, especially the homebrew stuff, because there's tons of homebrew stuff you can go out there and burn, which was never even released on disc, in a box and stuff. That's one thing Jaguar does have, is loads of homebrew stuff. I'll talk about that a bit later. Is to use verbatim. Verbatim CDs I've always found seem to be the best. I've found that verbatim CDs will work on every single Jaguar CD player. I've never found anyone who says that they don't work. And I generally use Nero to burn them on Nero's slowest speed with verbatim discs, and I found that actually works really well. So there we go. That's a bit about the CD unit hardware. So let's have a bit more look at the unit itself. So so there we go. A lot of people, there's a stupid nickname for the Jaguar CD, which is the crapper, because people said it looked like an upside down toilet. I can kind of see that, but I also do think that the Jaguar with the Jaguar CD in it looks really, really, really stylish. I'm trying to pick it up there together and it didn't work. So I do think it actually looks really stylish, personally speaking. A really stylish looking unit, although obviously the Duo would have looked even better, I feel. But I certainly don't think there's anything wrong with that design aesthetic, and I think it works really, really well. So you have a flip top lid with a button, and that is what is broken on mine. The catch that holds the CD down there, you'll probably see there's a little bit there to catch it. There's supposed to be a plastic pin that comes up in here, if the camera will focus, to lock that in, and that broke. And to how it broke is some drunken arsehole punched my Jaguar CD at an event when he couldn't get a game to work, and he repeatedly punched it, and that's how the lid got broken, which is why you can see that damage there. To say I was unhappy would be the underestimation of the century. Because I was absolutely fuming, and fair play to the event organizer, because the guy did get booted out and got a good talking to before he got booted out. But I was seriously angry, and it will still work perfectly. You just either have to put something on the lid to hold it down, or actually what I generally do is to use it as I just put an elastic band around it, which works as well, just to hold the lid down. Because the minute you press that lid in, the Jaguar CD resets automatically, so you have to have that lid down, because it won't play without that lid down and held down. You don't want it flipping up and so, because it will reset. So that's that part. There's a bit there you can put your finger in if you want to pick it up. Obviously you can see the CD spinning through that glass window there. There's our cartridge slot in the back, and there's our serial number, etc. So Jaguar CD-ROM. There we go. Made in the USA, Sunnyvale. I do think they were made in the USA, though. I thought they were made in the Netherlands. Perhaps they were made at the Magnavox factory in America, just as manufactured by Philips. So I'd have to check that. I assume they probably were made in the USA if it says that. But there we go. Philips are certainly originate from the Netherlands. They're a Dutch company. The only port you have there is for power, and it uses the exact same PSU as the Jaguar, so exactly the same, so nice and easy there. But unlike the Jaguar, if you use the wrong PSU with the Jaguar CD, it just won't work. Whereas a lot of people have found out that if you use the wrong PSU with the Jaguar itself, it blows the power regulator chip inside and fries your Jaguar. So then you have to get it repaired to some expense. It can be repaired, but yeah. So don't use the wrong power supply. Always use a proper Jaguar one if you can. They're not hard to come by. There's third-party solutions and places like Telegames that still sell power supplies, so they're really not that hard to get. There's no excuse for not, trying to use a Mega Drive one or something with it. So there we go. There's not really much more to say. The cartridge slot at the top there, obviously, because you still need to be able to play cartridge games. And obviously the other thing that's useful for, I've got the box of it here, is the memory track cartridge. So there it is. Which is an 8 meg cartridge, I believe. It says on the back actually there. So there we go. 125,000 bytes of storage, it says there. Stores information for up to 250 Jaguar games. I don't think there's even that many CD games in existence that can use it anyway. But very, very good. Very good addition. These are almost impossible to come by now, though. They go for silly money. Really hard to come by. When I got mine, I got one brand new and it didn't cost me much at all. Just shows how I didn't have one weirdly back in the day. I never got one when I got my Jaguar CD back in the day, because I always wanted to spend my money on games instead, and they basically cost the same price as the games did. But I was always keener on having the I was keen on having the games rather than having the memory track unit. But they are actually very, very, very useful. Yeah, which is something I discovered in more recent years when I started collecting all the Jaguar games I didn't have back in the day, and discovered titles like Baldies, for example, where memory track is incredibly useful. It's good for Battle Morph as well, actually, which I did have back in the day, but I think I must have just played through it without the memory track. Highlander, I did have that back in the day. That used memory track. So there are some stuff I had back in the day. Missed actually I had back in the day. There we go. I've actually got the memory track cartridge there. Had it to one side of me, so you can plug that in the top there, and there we go, and save all your Jaguar CD games onto it. I'll quickly mention actually, while I'm there, I haven't got a Jaguar CD box in the background. I've got a Jaguar box because I haven't any longer got the box for my Jaguar CD, so I can't show you that because when I was younger, I lived abroad for a few years. And when I went abroad, a lot of my stuff went into storage. I left the Jaguar and Jaguar CD and a lot of my stuff with my brother. And my brother lived in a pub, and somehow at some point while he was living there, the box for the Jaguar CD, a couple of the games and some game boxes all mysteriously got lost. Because there was the landlord and his wife had a young boy, and apparently he got in the cupboard and started playing with everything. So yeah, they got lost along the way somewhere. I have actually thought about picking up a box because there's someone that sells Jaguar CD replica boxes, but there was also B&C was selling the original boxes at one point as well, but they wanted too much money. I think they wanted like 40 quid for one. I just thought I don't really want to pay 40 quid for a box, so I never did it, not to mention the shipping from America on top of that, making it more expensive. But there we go, that's all of that.
Oh man, what a piece of junk.
Okay, what do we got here? A triple transducing capacitor. Digital coupling connected to... Oh man, surprise, a burnt out diode. Got any gum, sir? Cool, thanks.
Okay, that's $15.95 for labor. And parts. Oh, you have parts? There's no guitars.
So yeah, so let's talk about the games a little bit more. So the Jaguar CD itself came with quite a few. You got Blue Lightning with it. You got VidGrid with it. You got a demo of Myst with it. You got the Tempest 2000 soundtrack on CD with it, which I should have actually mentioned a bit more about that. I'll talk about that in a minute 'cause it fits in here nicely. And so yeah, you got a really good selection of stuff with it. 2 complete games in Blue Lightning and VidGrid, a nice demo and Myst, the Tempest 2000 soundtrack CD, and there was one more thing, which was the VLM, the Virtual Light Machine, which actually is built into the Jaguar CD-ROM. So if you turn the Jaguar CD on without a disc in, it will boot straight into the VLM. And I'll show that on the screen as well so you can see what the VLM is all about. But it was developed by Jeff Minter. It was an evolution of some software that he previously created for the Atari ST called Tripotron, which is a kind of same kind of light synthesizer kind of psychedelic thing. And when you play music CDs, the VLM will create graphics and stuff on the screen to match the music that you're playing. So it generates the effects on the screen based on the music that's playing in the Jaguar CD. Very, very, very clever indeed. And it looks amazing. And years back, actually, I can't remember his name, but I got chatting with a DJ who actually used a Jaguar CD with VLM in a nightclub back in the day, which must have been really cool, where they put it up on a big projection screen in the nightclub at the back, which would have been really cool. I'd have loved to have seen that because it does look amazing. The VLM is brilliant. It's one of the best readers to own a Jaguar CD. He did something similar later. Was it with the Xbox 360? I think he did. I'm sure it was the Xbox 360 that had it, which is basically an evolution of his virtual light machine. Did he do something like it with the GameCube as well? I seem to remember. I can't think now what that was called, but there was something like that. I'm sure he did. But yeah, the VLM is amazing. It's so cool to have something like that built in, and also as well as the it generating the effects and stuff itself, you could also program your own effects and create your own and change what was on the screen using the Jaguar controller. So I've got a Pro controller here. I'll take off that overlay that's on there. Don't need that on there. So you could press the buttons to get different combinations. So it was a first number, a second number, so you could do like 1-8, 1-9. So each number represented a different style of graphics, and then within that you had 1 to 10, basically 1, and you got 0, to change the style of that particular graphic effect as well. So it's really, really interactive and changeable. And you can move stuff around the screen and stuff as well with the joypad and buttons. That's my Pro controller, which is cool because the Pro controller came out about the same time as the Jaguar CD, to give you those extra buttons. I've done a separate video looking at the Pro controller, so I won't go into it here, but I'll link it in the comments if you want to see more about the Pro controller and its differences from the main controller and why it's so much better. But yeah, so there we go. We're supposed to be talking about the games, so let's get back to that. So the games came in bigger boxes, and to illustrate that, actually, I can show you a bit here, because there's obviously a Highlander box, and the memory track is actually in a standard size Jaguar box. So you can see quite a bit bigger, taller, and wider. And as well as coming in these taller boxes, though the design is quite similar, but with a Jaguar CD logo instead of a Jaguar logo, the back, same kind of similar designs to Jaguar boxes. Great artwork on that one. Atari games always had great artwork. But then inside, you had a second box, like a gatefold box, like this, where you open it up, and it opens right up, and then in there's a pocket where you could put your controller overlays. So if it comes with one, Highlander doesn't, but if it did, you could just literally just slide it in there. Or some I think have a slit there, actually, we can slide it in. There's the instruction manual, so that's slid into there as well. So it does come out, but and there's more credits and stuff behind that, but you slide the back page in. And then the tray for the CD. The CD is not in there actually. It's in a CD wallet. But I don't think you need to see a CD to know what a CD looks like. Although I have got some actually somewhere here. I did bring something with a CD in it. So that's how they worked. And actually, the Blue Lightning and Vid Grid that came with the Jaguar CD just came in one of these boxes. There was no big box. It just came in one of these little gatefold boxes. And the Mist demo just came in a just like a cardboard slipcase, small cardboard slipcase. So that was the main box. Then later on, there was a slightly different box, which is the Telegames boxes. So for the late release Jaguar CD games by Telegames, which is just World Tour Racing and Iron Soldier 2 actually, they came in these boxes, which is just standard Jaguar boxes, but they stuck a logo on the same CD. A bit half-assed really. So just did boxes like this, even just so Jaguar on the side, not Jaguar CD. So yeah, a bit half-assed with doing that. They just changed the inside in them so you don't have the tray that you get with cartridge games. It's a different type instead. You can see there, you just literally slide it in, and then the game inside would literally just be in a blank CD case, nothing special at all. And actually, Telegames did reissue their CD games in more recent years, because they're only made in small numbers, in standard DVD boxes. As you can see there, that's a modern Telegames release DVD box that do have the Jaguar CD logo on them, obviously because they're CD boxes. I think the back is slightly different as well. Yes, it is a little bit different, not much. And then inside, obviously you've got your printed CD. Ironically, these CDs are better because these have got a proper printed CD, but the original Telegames releases just had literally like blank black CDs with writing on. They weren't very fancy at all. And a lot of the modern homebrew stuff is released in this way as well. Actually, I've got there's an Iron Soldier 2 as well. Telegames release, you can see. Though weirdly, that one says Jaguar, not Jaguar CD. So again, total inconsistency there from Telegames. Well done, Telegames. So there we've got a Frog Feast, which is a modern homebrew. That's the Songbird version. So there we go with instructions in and a CD, which is actually on that one. It's a label pushed on the top. So there we go. And another Songbird one here, it's still sealed actually, is a Robinson's Requiem. That was a prototype that they picked up, fully complete prototype they picked up and released. Very, very impressive indeed, Robinson's Requiem for the Jaguar CD. I'll shove some footage of that actually into this video somewhere. Somewhere in there. Put that one back over there. And I say earlier, there's a lot of homebrew for the Jaguar CD. There's a lot of homebrew that's been released, and there's a lot of unreleased prototypes as well, like Robinson's Requiem. There's Brett Hull Hockey, Caves of Fear, American Hero, lots of Soulstar, lots of Jaguar CD stuff that's been released on discs, or the CD images have been leaked so people can download themselves. And to say there's tons and tons of homebrew stuff that was written for the Jaguar CD or can be played on the Jaguar CD, because it can load straight into the 2 megabytes of memory on the Jaguar. There are lots of, not all Jaguar stuff will also play from CD for that reason, because it has to load into the 2 megabytes of memory. But there is tons and tons and tons of homebrew stuff out that you can play on the Jaguar CD. And at one point, that was probably the best reason to buy a Jaguar CD. But that's been nullified somewhat now by the release of the Game Drive, of course, which is basically like an EverDrive style device for the Jaguar, because the EverDrive allows you to play all Jaguar games, including CD games, without the need for the CD unit. So it's kind of rendered the Jaguar CD a little bit more pointless, other than for collectors. And I obviously go into this whole bit at the end about whether it's worth owning. and it's a hard one to answer because of what I've actually just said. Because for me, I would have for years said that the Jaguar CD was worth owning because it has some of the best games on the Jaguar, without doubt. I mean, stuff like Battle Morph, World Tour Racing, Iron Soldier 2, Robinson's Requiem. They're amongst some of the best games on the Jaguar, without any doubt. It's got some really, really top titles. I love Highlander. It gets a lot of hate. You've got the brilliant Baldies is excellent. It's the best version of that game. It is on the PlayStation and Saturn as well, but those versions are simplified and they're not as good. There's loads of good stuff on the Jaguar CD. I mean, I covered it in that Jaguar exclusive CD as well that I talked about. So I would have always said that the Jaguar CD was something that you should definitely get if you're an Atari fan and a Jaguar fan. But it is so expensive that it puts it out of reach for most people. And I think in these days, the only people who would want a Jaguar CD or consider purchasing one are really hardcore collectors, because otherwise it's just out of reach for the general retro gamer because of its price. I mean, even the Jaguar itself has become so costly that a lot of retro gamers are put off picking one up, which is a shame because I feel the Jaguar is such an underrated console. So is the Jaguar CD worth owning in the present day? The answer sadly is probably not, because of the release of the game drive now means you can play all those Jaguar CD games on a regular Jaguar, which I suppose is only a good thing, even if it's not a completely legal way of doing it. But it is worth pointing out that when Hasbro took over Atari, or took the name, took the corpse of Atari, they did completely release the Jaguar and Jaguar CD into the public domain. Not the games as such. The games were still copyright, but the hardware certainly wasn't. So there is a kind of grey area there, actually, with the Jaguar in terms of legality of playing bootleg games on it, so to speak. But that's it, really. I hope you enjoyed my review of the Atari Jaguar CD add-on. I've been the Laird. I thank you for watching, and I'll see you all again for another video very soon.